How you doing, wrestling fans? And welcome to another edition of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast. We are the only wrestling podcast that brings you back 30 years, featuring some of the biggest guests of that time. And this week is no exception. We have a really good one for you today. Pro Wrestling Spotlight covered all the news that was breaking in real time. We get to relive those moments right now on this podcast. And joining me, as always, direct from a torrential downpour up in New York, another in-morning Mets fan like me. He is Mr. Bob Smith. Bob, sad, aren't you?
No, I'm angry.
Yeah.
These Mets, they said. These nuts, I say.
I'd like to know the marketing genius who put that slogan together. These Mets.
The Mets are the Mets lost. There's a nor'easter outside, and Bray Wyatt is back. How can I be happy? How can I be happy?
I like Bray Wyatt.
Old school wrestling fan, let me be happy.
I like Bray Wyatt, man. I always thought he had charisma.
No, listen, he's great. He plays his role amazing.
Is he the?
I don't like it. I'm sorry, it's not my kind of gimmick. I'm sorry.
I like the Fun House.
Yeah.
It's very juvenile, and I'm a little juvenile myself. So,
well, anyway, hello everybody. I'm actually fine. Everything's good. I'm just our favorite team lost in the wild card of Major League Baseball's National League division, and John and I are in a little bit of a funk mentally. Yeah. You know how it goes.
Yeah. Mets heartbreak again this year. It reminds me of 2007. It reminds me of how many other years can I mention? It reminds me of every year, Bob.
6, 7, 8. 16,
so many.
15,
Strike 3, Beltran, 2006. Yeah. All of it, always the Braves coming back and ruining them at the end of the 90s. Yankees Subway World Series in 2000, Royals 2015. I mean, 2016 wild card loss. I mean, it's just like every year. This year was so special all season, and then September comes along, and they had the easiest schedule in the game, and they can't win when they're supposed to, and they go to the Braves needing to win one game, and they get swept. Scherzer, DeGrom, Chris Bassett, it's Lindor, Alonso not hitting in the clutch. These Mets.
From spring training, they looked wonderful. All season long, they didn't win more than 3 games in a row. They won like their first umpteen series.
Yeah, they didn't lose more than 3 games in a row all season. And then September hits, and Starling Marte gets hurt, and it's like somebody popped a balloon. Mm-hmm. It's like the pitcher started to falter, the offense started to look haphazard. If it wasn't for Escobar, the third baseman, I don't know what the record would have been. They just started to look tired. They looked, I can't even put my finger on it, but it just, and I was there for games 1 and 3 of the wild card, and you would figure after winning the middle game, the fans would be super psyched, at the stadium, and it didn't feel that way. I think it was more like a trepidatious crowd. They weren't confident. They knew. They were waiting for that other shoe to drop and for the Mets to be eliminated, and it wasn't even a sellout.
No.
Game 3, an elimination game, was not a sellout. That's because the Mets were gouging their fans with ticket prices that were starting at $150 in the nosebleed sections, in the section 500s, and of course StubHub that crashed, and people were able to get in the game for $20-$30 to get in for a Game 3 elimination. So, it's all over. Turn the page. What are you going to do? We have lots of wrestling stuff to talk about tonight.
We have the wonderful world of our era of professional wrestling, featuring Bill Watts and his son, Eric.
That is correct, the Watts era. But before we get into all that, we want to bring Marsh on, direct from Tucson, Arizona, the producer and creative director of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Marsh, how are you today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to hear how you guys break down this one.
Yeah, you ready for Christmas yet?
No, I thought about that yesterday. Last night I was in bed and I was like, oh man, it's coming up pretty close.
No, it just looks festive in your place over there. I see a lot of red and green, so That's Cartman. Is that like South Park and back of you or something?
Which one?
That blanket?
Oh no, that's Connor's Cure bandana I had up.
Oh, Connor's Cure. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, it looked a little festive back there.
Yeah.
It does look
I
festive,
just
doesn't
noticed
it?
things. It looks like you're getting ready for Christmas early. So.
Well, I am, but also because my girlfriend's birthday is the same month, so I got double duty. So
you do got double duty.
Yeah.
But things are good with you. You're doing a great job. We're getting a lot of views on YouTube. We were discussing that before we took the air. And so our numbers are up, which is great. So just want everybody to go to that youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight channel, subscribe, watch those an enormous amount of content we have up there. And you're doing a great job, Marsh.
I appreciate that. Yes,
you are.
You really are. So, we got some good clips today, and we'll talk to you at the end of the show, my friend, unless you need to talk to us about anything right now. But I know you're getting ready for all the revelry of this particular show.
Yes, I'm getting ready. I'm psyched for it. So I'll be on call if you need me.
Oh, thank you, Marsh. And feel free to jump in.
Yes, anytime.
Don't we have something to talk about? Like you gave Bob the wrong answer last week about Kamala.
Like
no.
Doesn't sound like me. I'm pretty spot on all the time.
No, he is spot on.
Bob, you're the one that got berated on Twitter. So
I got berated on Twitter. Someone sent me a direct message. There was a wrestler in WCW who was brought in to make Eric Watts look good. That's why I mentioned Eric Watts. And his name was the Mamba War, and I went, "Who the hell is that?" I was around at the time, and I have no recollection. Apparently, they brought him in for a one spot, and Marsh reported that he was Kamala. Well, Marsh was partially right. He turned out to be Diet Kamala.
Yeah,
he didn't, because he was Ben Peacock, who was known primarily as the Botswana Beast, a Kamala knockoff, so to speak. A shorter version of Kamala, but he also was known as Kamala 2, and in Japan and in various other federations, and actually tag teamed with Kamala here and there. I think particularly in Japan. So you were right and you were wrong at the same time. But my friends
we give him a pass. Let's give him a pass.
My friends on Twitter are unforgiving and unrelenting. I cannot make a mistake here. If I do, I get hammered. Mm-hmm. Left, right, and sideways.
No, I got worked. I'm pretty sure Renegade was also the Ultimate Warrior. I'll lay that out now. That's the same. Yes, my God. But I'll be on call if you need me.
Do you remember? Are you familiar with a lot of the bromides that happened back in our era? Like another famous one was Miss Elizabeth was George Steele's daughter. That was a big one. Did anybody ever hear that one?
I did not.
I heard it plenty. I was in a cab in New York City and I mentioned that I work for a wrestling magazine. Yeah, I love wrestling. Did you know that Miss Elizabeth there with Randy? That's George Steele's daughter. I went, oh come on. I used to hear this stuff all the time, and I would just go, oh, good for you. I didn't know how to react to people.
The only ones I really remember as a kid was that there was several Ultimate Warriors, that there were several Undertakers. Mm-hmm. Warrior had died, and then they brought in a new one, like stuff like that. But I wasn't as online as a kid, so I didn't know about a lot of that cool stuff. That's why I like doing stuff like this.
Marsh, I wasn't online as a kid either.
Come to think of it, me either.
Yeah, see? Same era.
I had to get the newspaper to find out what was going on every day.
In Marsh, back then, online for us mean we had to stick our finger in a hole and rotate it around a dial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Get on the telephone line, as it were. Yeah. That was
I like the old modems where you actually had to put the phone on it so it could get the dial tone through it. Those are awesome. But
yeah. And I was actually listening to one of the old shows from 1989, and we were doing a promotion with Ricky Steamboat at a company called Herbert Plumbing on Long Island. And the grand prize, because we had a big sweepstakes, was a remote control color TV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Could be good.
How modern.
Remote control. That was 89. I mean, you still had remotes and everything and color TVs, obviously, but it was still kind of odd to hear that it was kind of a remote control color TV is the grand prize.
That's awesome. In 1980, I got my first VCR. I paid $1,000 for it. Why did I pay $1,000 for a big honking VCR that had one thing you could do with it? You could pause it. That was it. You know why? The San Martino Zbyszko match.
Wow.
I needed to tape. I needed to preserve. I knew it was going to, even before it happened, I had this vibe that it was going to be something really special. So I put my pennies together and I went to the electronics store and bought this RCA. $1,000, man.
That's when you needed a separate device to rewind, right? There was just the rewinders.
No,
I remember having one of those.
No, there was a rewind fast forward. I got mine in the first one I got was in 1982.
Okay.
And I got mine primarily to tape videos from MTV.
Really?
Yeah, because I was in the music business. I was, and MTV was brand new, and I was just fascinated. I'd watch MTV all day long, and you get your favorite videos, and I'd have the VCR set up to record my favorite videos.
Well, you want to hear something funky? And I swear to God, I just remembered this. I got a $1,000 VCR and connected it to my black and white television. I still had a black and white TV. I was a young, struggling
but you
kid at that point.
VCR,
and
though. You had to get that
I had
VCR
my hand-me-down TV.
Bruno.
That's all I had. Yeah, I needed to see Bruno Zbyszko. I needed it. I knew it was going to be special, so when I got a DVR or VCR.
I had a Sony Trinitron, they called them back then.
Oh yeah,
and that was supposed to be the high end, and the Sony Trinitron, which I bought from somebody while I was in college. It was like in my end year in college, and I was so happy. He was going home. He wanted to get rid of the TV. I don't know what I paid for it, $100, $50, but it was a Sony Trinitron, and they had the best color. You'd adjust the knobs and try to get that right picture. But I think I paid $1,200 for that Sharp VCR, and it was kind of interesting because it was portable too. That you have a little handle on it, so it was very mobile, and it came with a camera as well. It's part of the setup. Yeah.
My VCR it was a top loader. You had to put it in a little slot and then slam the thing down into the machine to get it to a boom. It was big and heavy. This thing was heavy. Probably about 50 pounds, this machine.
Now you pick your phone up and you put something in a search engine and you just click a button and you're watching it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Time to change slightly.
I used to record all the wrestling I was watching in the 90s, and my brother still makes fun of me for it, but I keep telling him a lot of these YouTube videos you see of stuff that people don't really remember is because it's not on the network anymore. They cut out a lot of things that became offensive.
Right.
And I was like, there's probably actually a value to all those tapes that I had, to be honest.
I think there is. Yeah.
And then, because even in this episode, you're going to talk about it. You did a whole commercial for Rob Feinstein, who was running a bunch of...
Who was a bootlegger.
And it was awesome to hear that, because you talk about it. And he was selling 2-tape set of Ric Flair, all of his title changes, and it was $35 for both of them. And I was like, that actually sounds like a pretty good deal.
I have several of these things. I have actually a 3 VHS set of the best of Bruno Sammartino that I need to digitize, because I have several tapes like that. The best of Cactus Jack, and I also found in a box recently, which I have to get digitized, because when I first met Mick Foley, he dubbed off a video cassette for me of his entire Dude Love, and when he was a teenager, with jumping off the house. But it's the entire play, the Dude Love thing, and all of his early matches in Texas when he was working there for World Class, and it is a rare piece of history. So I'd love to digitize that and get that out for patrons as well. And we'll see what happens. This stuff isn't cheap to get. You go to a dubbing house and it's just just a lot of.
Well,
I have the equipment. I have the equipment to digitize VHSs because of a lot of family stuff. So I've got all that stuff.
And John also, even one of the great unknown things is there's something known as a card you could buy on Amazon for $35, and you can do it yourself. What it does, it connects to the RC.
I don't have the patience.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing.
Stop you.
You know what? That is the thing about. I have digitized some VHS tapes. Here's the problem: you got to do them in real time.
I know,
and it takes forever.
Oh, I know. That's why.
Forever.
The first lot of stuff I had digitized at the Transfer Lab here in Tennessee. It cost me close to $6,000 when I was first, all of my movies and all of the IWAS matches from Singapore and the AAA stuff and family home videos and all the stuff that's on Patreon right now.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is up there, but I still have a huge box of stuff that I need to get done, but I just don't, have the $5,000 to, take everything over there. I may send Marsh a box. That could be your Christmas present to me.
I'll digitize. Okay, fly me out. It's cheaper to fly me out all the way out there with my equipment than it is.
Yeah, right? It would be. Yeah. Put you up for a week. All right, let's get on with the show. Thank you, Marsh. Good to see you. We'll talk to you at the end. And Bob, of course, we'll get started with this one. But I do want to mention to everyone, go to patreon.com/John Arezzi. And you could sign up at $5 a month, get you in the door to get all the archives and the podcast early and the video podcast early. And if you want to see all that content I just mentioned, there are other levels, $10, $25, $50, and $100. But find the level that works best for you. Patreon.com/John Arezzi. I really would appreciate you joining. We're hanging steady at 82 patrons, Bob. It doesn't move. Every week it's the same number.
It'll move. Once they see our
down.
No. Once they see our handsome faces on YouTube, people are going to flock to, especially the ladies. I'm telling you.
I got a nice haircut yesterday. That was nice.
There you go. See,
my hairstylist. I've actually been going to her for since I moved here in 2000. So 22 years. I think I met her when she was 19, and now she just turned 40. And she put me in the chair yesterday, and she just started telling me about some guy she was seeing and how she busted through his window the other night because he was cheating on her. I mean, it was just kind of like, oh my God. I mean, I'm supposed to tell my hairdresser my problems.
That's right.
Not the other way around.
Hairdressers are like bartenders. They're there to listen to your life story.
Yeah, she was getting pretty graphic in the conversation, but that's her, and I actually met her 22 years ago when I got here. I was, looking for a place to get my hair cut, and I was walking down this little strip mall, and I looked in the window, and I saw this really cute little redhead, and I'm like, I think I'll go in there. So, and 22 years later, here we are. It's crazy. Long relationship.
We must be kindred spirits. Also, my hairstylist, I've known her for about probably 19 years now. It's same thing. I was just looking for a place to get a haircut. I looked in the window. I said, I'll ask her. And I've known her ever since, and we're friends. And she's the only person I will let touch my head.
Right. Once you find that person,
I don't want to go anywhere else. Once you find somebody you like, and this woman, Jamie, if you're watching, you're the best. I sit down. I've had long hair in the past.
Yes.
No matter what my style is, 5 minutes in and out of the chair. She's a magician. I don't know how she does it. 5 minutes. Boom. How are you? You're done.
She gave me a nice cut this time. I'm trying to, my hair, I can't do nothing with it anymore. Not that I want to get into the vanity stuff, but, I'm getting really thin on the top and the back here. So that's concerning me. And the grays are just starting to come in like more than they ever have. So I'm like, oh my God, 65 ain't fucking good.
And, just for men is expensive, It's
yeah, I used it once or twice. I'm sure everyone's out there. When are you going to get to Captain Lou Albano?
Yeah, that's true.
But
he had gray hair.
Yeah,
too.
Just for men, I used it once or twice, 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was. But my hair has been okay, but now it's really starting to come in. I guess that's what
I'll put it this way. 5 easy minutes, my ass. It's not 5 easy minutes.
No.
But you know who was easy back in the day? You started your show. This was episode 180 at the time. What was the date on the show? Do you remember?
I do remember. It was November the 21st, 1992.
Right, and there was a Survivor. You started with a little bit of news before you bring on Don Leibel for this episode. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. The British Bulldog was just out of the WWF, and I guess there's a line here. Marshall, WCW had Clash of the Champions, and you said, quote, the Eric Watts show over there. Yeah. So apparently Bill was pushing Eric like really, really strong at that point.
He was.
And as we just mentioned, he brought in Diet Kamala to take on Eric Watts on TV. Ben Peacock, that's right. And he not only did they have Mambo Warrior managed by Michael Hayes, it was managed by Michael Hayes and Paulie Dangerously at the same time. So they made this guy look like a monster, obviously, so that Eric Watts can beat him. And that's, you know how that works.
Nepotism.
Mm-hmm. Farmingdale Lanes, a place where I have actually bowled, ladies and gentlemen, held the Captain Lou Albano birthday party. Or was it about to, or did it happen already?
It was actually going on as we were recording, as we were on live the air. One of our listeners, a guy named Nick Cotter was his name. It was his son's birthday, and they were doing a bowling party. And he went up to me and he was like, "Listen, if I wanted to get Captain Lou Albano to come to my son's birthday party, you think that's possible?" I was like, as Ted DiBiase would say, everyone has a price. So I called up Lou, and Lou said, "Yeah, Johnny, yeah, why not? Yeah, I'll do it." Well, I think I got him $1,000 or $1,500. Wow. And the guy paid it, and it was really cool because he went down there and hung out with the kids at this birthday party, and then as we'll hear, as we get on with the show. I mean, that's the reunion with Micky B, and we have some really cool stuff to cover today. So,
very cool.
But the Captain Lou was at Farmingdale Lanes, who become a much bigger part of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, beginning with the next episode, as you guys will hear next week.
That's a great. Is Farmingdale Lanes still open?
I believe they are.
Figured that out.
110.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. Great place to bowl. It really is. Anyway, also you guys discussed the Babylon High School show from Tommy D that we discussed in the previous show, and you said it was a real disappointing event.
Yeah.
They didn't deliver all the stars they promised, like Paul Orndorff was supposed to be there and wasn't.
I think I was only there for 10, 15 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that the show that was Eddie Gilbert, Terry Funk, or?
No, that was a Carluzzo show in Jersey.
Oh, that's
the Tommy D Babylon High School show was just, and we do cover it. I think we have Vinny from West Babylon later on in the show too that talk about he was there. But yeah, I mean, he advertised a lot of guys that didn't show up and had substitutes, and that's why high schools were very hesitant on bringing wrestling.
Well, yeah, that was
false advertising.
That was the bane of independent wrestling and independent promoters, is that they would often. Card subject to change, it would say at the bottom of the poster. Mm-hmm. But the poster would be full of whoever wasn't in contract at WCW or the WWF. And maybe they contacted these stars to try to get them a booking, but a lot of times you'd be disappointed. You'd have, Mike Kalua substitute for Rick Steamboat or something. It was just, could be very disappointing.
Oh, you'd bring in Vic Steamboat instead.
Vic Steamboat, that's right. IWCCW legend, are you kidding?
Yeah,
Vic Steamboat, Lex Lavender. I liked IWCCW. Big Mark Mast, all those guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know what? They worked hard. They tried really hard. Listen, they promoted in a couple of historic arenas. That's why I used to love to go and help them out on their TV shows. And Tony Atlas, the world champion for a long time.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. So as we go on with our soiree here, what leads off every show? You fans know. It's the walking wrestling encyclopedia, Don Liable, of course. And he's got a lot of news here. And shall we go to hear Don's dulcet tones?
Let's hear the Time Capsule by Donnie Liable.
Let's go.
Let's go to our news capsule this week. As we do every week, we bring on Mr. Don Liable. Don, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, John.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good. The snow has stopped up here. A couple nights ago when I spoke to you last, we had about 5 inches fall. So things are thawing out a bit. Feeling good.
Okay. What's going on in the world of pro wrestling this week?
Ooh, lots happening this week, and if you haven't heard, you'll hear it here first. Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig will be Macho Man Randy Savage's tag team partner, replacing the Ultimate Warrior in the main event for this coming Wednesday Survivor Series pay-per-view from Richfield, Ohio. Now, the new partnership was announced last Monday on the World Wrestling Federation's USA show Primetime. Ric Flair and Razor Ramon will be the challenging team. Well, it's official. WrestleMania will be taking place on Sunday, April the 4th from Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. And sticking with the pay shows last week in Sacramento, California, tickets went on sale for the January 24th Royal Rumble. Now, the Observer reports about 2,000 seats were purchased when the ticket windows went up. And look for former co-holder of the WWF tag title, The Earthquake, to make the Rumble his swan song from the Federation. And the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith is expected to resume taking to the ring overseas, that is, come January for Giant Baba's All Japan Wrestling promotion, which just celebrated its 20th year in business. Turning to World Championship Wrestling happenings, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff has returned to the fold and is being managed by Medusa. Now, Orndorff surprised many last Monday at the TV tapings as he scored a win, count-out style, over WCW Pin King Ron Simmons. Oh, what a match is scheduled for Starrcade. The December pay-per-view promises Masa Chono, current National Wrestling Alliance champion, defending against fellow countryman, the Great Muta. And congratulations are in store for the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, as they are the new Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Champs. Last week in Harlan, Kentucky, the Express stripped Jim Cornette's Heavenly Bodies, Tom Pritchard and Stan Lane, of the belts. And Wayne, New Jersey was the setting last weekend for a good old-fashioned Texas death match between Terry Funk and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. Promoter Dennis Carluzzo sent the fans home happy as both wrestlers brawled for 12 falls. That's correct, 12 falls for nearly 1/2 hour and bled as you would have expected. Finally, from the scrapbook files, 10 years ago to this week in wrestling, in Madison Square Garden, Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig and Eddie Gilbert battled to a 15-minute draw. And in Yokohama, Japan, get this, folks, it was the team of Hulk Hogan and Antonio Inoki defeating Andre the Giant and Rene Goulet. Honest it was. For Pro Wrestling This Week, I'm Don Label reporting. Capsule time, 10:10.
My head's going to explode. I just watched that match.
You did?
I swear, 2 days ago on YouTube, somebody posted that match, and it's great.
And you didn't have the show notes, so you didn't know, right?
No, I knew this, but this just said that, they were going to have the match.
That's a coincidence.
This is twice in a week.
Wow. There's something eerie going on.
Something eerie going on, I'm telling you. I'm spooked, I tell you. But the match is fantastic. And the best part about it, since it's all in Japanese, I can't tell who's a heel and who's a face, if anybody.
Yeah,
well, I got the feeling
that always blurred there too. There wasn't a lot of that. There was a lot of,
and Inoki looked fantastic. What physical condition he was in.
Goodness, yeah.
And that's half the reason I wanted to watch it, because I wanted to have some memories of Tony. And it just popped up on my line, and I watched the thing. You could tell who was going to lose in that match. It was obviously Rene Goulet, who got pinned by Inoki in the end very quickly. But the match actually went about 18 minutes, and it was really good. And Andre was really good too. Everybody worked their butts off in that match, and a lot of heat.
Hey, do you know what tag team partner Rene Goulet had? Tag team champions in the WWF?
Carl Gotch?
There you go.
Hey, I know who beat them. My favorite, Baron Michael Cicluna and Ken Curtis. Yeah. Beat them for the championship.
And they won the titles from. Do you remember that?
Which team?
Rene Goulet and Carl Gotch. Who did they win the tag team?
Tarzan Tyler and
Crazy Luke.
Crazy Luke Graham. That's right.
Yep, that's right.
Not bad, huh?
Good.
And who beat Cicluna and Curtis?
Cicluna and Curtis. Dean Ho and Tony Gurria?
No, that was about a year later.
This
was Strongbow and Sonny King.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Sonny King and Chief J. Strongbow, right. Yeah.
I still got a little bit of hair, fans.
Should have known that.
A little bit up in the noggin, I'm telling you.
That's 50 years ago.
I could name all the WWF champions up until Hogan in a line.
Yeah. Then it's like, it turns into a shit show.
No, it's true. I used to pride myself. I used to impress people at the wrestling offices and go, Rogers, but I just went down the line and remembered Stasiak.
May 13th.
I didn't know the dates or anything. You know the dates?
Yeah,
that's better than I was even in my prime.
That's only up until the point where it turned into crap. Well, I mean, for guys like us who are like going back all those years, and
the
whole Mania era came in, it was just a lot of title changes, and it was kind of like.
But the fact that we could remember the first 15 champions is contingent on the fact that champions held their belts long in the WWF.
Very true.
They didn't swap titles every 2 months or 6 weeks or whatever.
Nope.
When you were a champion, you usually held the belt for a long time unless you were Stan Stasiak, a transitional guy who was just put in to go from...
Today you could win the title and you could lose it in a minute later with a Money in the Bank contract.
Exactly right. So, but the championship was... One of the reasons that WWF worked so well is because people flocked to see the championship. They flocked to the championship. That's what made the Garden so special. There's always a championship match was the main event every single time.
Yep.
That's why people paid their money. They weren't paying to see Pete Sanchez versus
no, they paid their $7 ringside to see a good show and your $2.50 blue seats.
Yep. And I like I said, the first time I ever got to go was 1978, which is past. Like I said, I never saw Bruno live, which is one of my great regrets.
Oh.
I saw Pedro live many times, but I didn't get to see Bruno.
Wow.
No.
I never forget the first time I seen him live. My goodness.
Yeah.
Against Smasher Sloan.
And you saw Blassie work. You lucky.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
All right.
There's some other stuff going on in them. Backlund, I guess, finally did come in.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about it for about 2 months.
I know. I was hoping for that until I saw him.
Survivor Series, the Warriors gone. The Macho Man was taking time off. Very transitional in the WWF at that point.
It was.
And if you guys want to hear all this chatter between Don and Leibel and John Arezzi talking about that era, you got to go to Patreon because you can hear the entire show from beginning to end, and there's nothing else like it.
That is true. Patreon.com/John Arezzi. Hear them all unedited.
Mm-hmm. So as your show continues, there's some ads come up from L&S Comics. Your loyal advertiser and a great store. One of the great wrestling hubs in the East Coast at that point to buy wrestling memorabilia. It was really great. Yeah. And we're going to move on to Captain Lou Albano. And you just kind of explain how you got him on the show.
Yep. The bowling party, Nick Cotter's kid, and the captain was there. And I was so excited because we'll hear about it. But, to get him together and do a reunion with Micky B that day was just kind of unbelievable.
Well, you know what is amazing about Lou Albano at this point in his career? He actually was doing very well as an actor, which I couldn't believe because even the insiders in the business knew him as this big blithering guy who was like really crazy, legit. And I guess he had enough wherewithal to calm down and study and become a really good actor. And he was Super Mario and all this other stuff and Wise Guys and everything else.
He had a really good stretch of great opportunity. From the movie Wise Guys he played with Danny DeVito and Joe Piscopo and Frankie the Fixer. One of the funniest movies ever. And the Super Mario stuff and all the other things that he did. I mean, it started off with him being in Cyndi Lauper's video. I mean, that's what really got him going. Mm-hmm. And the catalyst of that introduction is none other than Micky B, which we'll hear a little bit more about today.
Well, that is one of the greatest music videos of all time. Girls Just Want to Have Fun. That's absolutely tremendous. Yeah. And a bit of trivia, the follow-up, I guess it was Time After Time, that song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Part of that was shot in a place I regularly hung out, the Hudson, New York Amtrak station. There's a scene in an Amtrak station in that video. It looks like this old-fashioned, vacant, just there's nobody there. That's what the place was like all the time. I can see why they selected it. It was clean, but it was empty all the time. It was like nobody ever used the interior of this station. And I used to hang out there going between New York City and upstate New York, where I'm originally from, because I would take Amtrak home. And so I've always had a soft spot for Cindy's videos because they were really well done.
I loved her videos. And then She Bop was the other one after that to follow up. We had a bunch of wrestlers in that one.
She's one of the few artists who had her first album was actually her greatest hits. There's so many hits on that album, you could call it her greatest hits because it's like that was all of them, but about two. I mean, what a success right out of the box. And that was a slow build.
Loved her.
I was working at Record World at the time. I was a manager at a Record World store. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yes, before I got into my chosen profession, I used to manage a record store in Middletown in Poughkeepsie, New York, for Record World. And the record came out, and it was a slow builder. Her first album, She's So Unusual, was the name of the record, which was also a cut on the record. And it took a while. It took about 4 months before that thing to grab. Some DJ played Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and the rest was history. Plus, the video didn't hurt.
Video was awesome.
And Captain Lou's hilarious in that. He really was great. It just, what a great era that was, at least in terms of bringing new fans to wrestling. It really did.
And you don't know, I mean, if Captain Lou and Micky B and Cyndi Lauper weren't on the same plane coming back from Puerto Rico.
See, it all ties in, folks. Yeah.
Might have never, it wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm. See why we're talking about these videos, gang? Because it's like this is all part of the circle of what happened.
That's right.
With Captain Lou. Let's hear him. Let's hear him at his. He was in a nice mood in this show, right?
Yeah, he made a few bucks. He was probably drinking a little bit over there.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Alley.
I had a feeling.
He had a pretzel or two or a hot dog. Who knows?
All right, let's listen to a legend and a Hall of Famer, Captain Lou Albano.
Want to talk wrestling? Join us at 661-1440. And now, here's John Arezzi.
Okay, we're back with Pro Wrestling This Week, and it's an honor to bring on the telephone a guy that's only about 10 minutes from here. He's at a birthday party, one of our Pro Wrestling Spotlight listeners. Very generous dad, Nick Cotter, brings Captain Lou Albano to his son's birthday party. And Captain, are you there?
Well, yes, I am, and we're having a great time here at the party. All the young guys and gals are bowling, and they can actually bowl better than I can. With my broken hand, I can hardly pick up the ball. Wow. But they're lovely lanes. It's a real good dad to turn around and to throw a party like this for his son.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, Lou, we'll be bringing you down here to the WNYG studios after the party.
All right, John.
And Micky B and the Jukebox Review, the man who introduced you to Cyndi Lauper.
Yes, on the plane coming back from San Juan or Puerto Rico. That was some years back.
Well, that'd be a little bit of a reunion for you. But there's been a lot of talk in the wrestling world, Lou. We'll just keep you for a couple minutes here, and then you can get back to the party.
Okay,
about Captain Lou Albano returning to pro wrestling, and as far as some meetings that might have taken place with the WWF. Can you clear up what's been going on with you in that situation?
Yes, I've talked to the WWF, and as of now, I've reached no agreement. We're going back and forth, and I don't want to come back on a full-time basis, John. If I came back, it would have to be on a part-time basis, and there'd be interest in probably handling a Bob Backlund, or there was talk about me handling the Nasty Boys, who would now be the Nice Boys. I would be interested. I started with the WWF, and I've been with McMahon's father for 30-something years, and I think with my Mario cartoon character out there, it'd be a good image for the WWF that they could use some good hype. So it's up to them to make the right kind of a deal, and if it's made, then we'll go from there.
That sounds great. Now, of course, your acting career just continues to take off by leaps and bounds. I understand there could be a Wise Guy sequel in the works.
They're talking about a Wise Guys sequel. We've got several other movies in the wind. Wise Guys 1 did very well, especially in home video. It really shut up, and we did Body Slam, Complex World. I was in Stay Tuned. And my Super Mario show that's on the Family Channel is doing very well. It's all over the place. We've got about 75 or 80 shows in, and that comes on Sunday mornings at 8:30 and every day at 4:30 on the Family Channel all over the nation. So Captain Lou plays Mario with the beard shaved and a big fake mustache. It's doing very well, John.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, we'll let you get back to the party, and we'll come down there and bring you back to the studios to talk to Micky B later on. Well, listen, have a good time, and we'll see you in a little bit.
All right, John. You're a great guy, and it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Lou. Okay, Captain Lou Albano. And I've known the captain for some time. Tom, you want to interject something here?
Yes, Frankie the Fixer.
Frankie the Fixer.
No, thank you, Mr. Roccavano. It's a great movie.
Yes, it was.
I forgot all about that movie.
Yeah, he was instrumental in that. And, of course, they're talking about the sequel right now. And,
do you remember the scene where he's eating lobster
in
the movie, and there's like a pile of...
It was great.
Pile of lobster shells.
He was great. He certainly fit the role very well. And,
Absolutely.
The captain is a natural. Is a born entertainer, and so I want to remind all the wrestling fans out there that Captain Lou will be coming back here to WNYG. And Mickey, is that the last time you saw Lou Albano was on that plane?
No, Captain Lou I saw at the Radio City Music Hall show. You know, he loves rock and roll and doo-wop, so
yeah.
we're going to have a great time. We're going to go back to the 50s and 60s, the old-time wrestlers. John Arezzi, you're going to be here with me, with the captain, talk about Cyndi Lauper on the plane, and girls want to have fun, and the whole thing of WrestleMania. I mean, this was the whole beginning, John.
Yeah.
You know, and I was part of that whole movement. It's going to be a lot of fun because rock and roll and wrestling usually went together most of the time. You know, music was around the same time with those great wrestlers. So we're going to have some fun this afternoon, the Jukebox Review, as Captain Lou Albano comes by here with his head all cut open and everything. I remember bleeding. He was bleeding. He was on the plane. Blood was dripping on my pants. And I said, what happened to Lou? They banged his head into a rope, cut his head on a steel strap, and that was it.
Lou took some tremendous bumps when he was managing.
A lot of bumps. Yeah. I still think he's bleeding right there. I don't know.
No,
we'll find out today.
Yes, we will. Captain, a great guy, and he'll be here on the Micky B Jukebox Review later on. So keep the dial where it is today and listen to some great doo-wop music with Micky B, and you'll be able to even possibly talk to the captain himself.
Wow.
Great stuff. I think Micky B missed his calling. Not only was he a great promoter and the doo-wop artist, and he had that song, Here Comes the Garbage Man, and everything else he did. And he might have been a really good wrestling manager.
You know, he sounded like one. He sounded just like
that's
one.
what I was thinking when I heard back, when I was listening.
Yeah, he said same convoluted logic. You know, rock and roll and wrestling, they were together at the same time. I'm like, oh, okay. So was Air.
No, my biggest regret is from that day is that, and Mickey's not with us anymore,
right.
But I don't have a copy of that Micky B show. I would have loved to have a tape of that entire show with Captain Lou and Micky B going at it one-on-one in the WNYG studios. That would have been unbelievable to have a copy of that.
John, tell our listeners here who the other voice was on that clip, if you would.
That was Tom Rocky Pantaleo, who was the engineer for me at the time, and he was also a DJ. And as I mentioned on the show, he's still doing it.
Wow.
He's still doing it.
You know,
graduate of West Babylon High School, went to school with my sister. I met him at WNYG, and a very interesting guy, and a drummer in a band as well. He had a band for a long time. He was in a band called Quick Draw.
Oh, Quick Draw. Listen, as someone who worked for Good Times Magazine, which I did, Quick Draw still plays.
Yeah.
As far as I know, they were playing throughout my entire run of while I was there, and I was there for 17 years. So
Joe Spada was the lead singer.
There you go. Yeah.
No, that was Six Gun. Six Gun.
Was it Six Gun or Quick Draw?
Well, Joe Spada was in Six Gun.
All right.
Tom Pantaleo was in Quick Draw.
There you go. Okay. My head is spinning. And I think they still play too. If not, they were playing recently. Yeah, here's the problem. The pandemic got in the way of all this stuff.
Yeah.
And but up to that point, the names were in the paper all the time. Amazing.
Don't you need to call it a day after 30 years?
Well, you know what, though?
Unless you have a passion for playing, you play and you know what? You get your chops, right?
You don't play unless people come out and see you.
Yeah.
So obviously they still
following.
Yeah, so they still had a following. Even if it's friends and neighbors, they don't care who shows up. Just go out and have a good time. That's what music is for, you know?
That is very true. Very true.
Lou managed the movie Body Slam. Here's my review of Body Slam. That was one of the worst. Oh, did you see Body Slam?
Yeah, I did.
And?
No, that's the same reaction as you just
made. It was a wrestling. The problem with a lot of wrestling movies, a lot of independent producers picked up on wrestling at about that point. The problem with wrestling movies is they were made by people who didn't understand wrestling. Mm-hmm. They would hire wrestlers and, people who had been involved in wrestling, but they just came off.
I remember I think it was 73, 74, where Edward Asner was.
Yeah, the wrestler.
The wrestler, yeah. And Vivian Vachon was in that, and a lot of the Canadian stars at the time. And that was kind of like, for me, I couldn't even believe there was a movie about wrestling. I was like, oh my God, I got to see this. And it was not in the theaters anymore.
I love that movie. I have a VHS tape version of that. Not VHS. I have a DVD of that film. And Ric Flair's in that movie?
I don't remember.
There's a scene of a bunch of it actually is kind of almost like an autobiographical Vern Gagne, although he's known as Mike something in the film. And Ed Asner was a newspaper reporter and covering all this stuff. And there's a scene where Vern is training young wrestlers, and one of them was Ric Flair, and they shows him around eating at a table, and I think Rick has a line, and he says, "What's going on?" or something like just. But a young Ric Flair has a slight cameo in that film, as well as everybody else.
I'm sure it's out there on YouTube.
Oh, it's out there.
Look for The Wrestler. I mean, that may be something I watched tonight.
It really catches the flavor of 70s wrestling. I highly recommend that film. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Billy Robinson, I think, was the
Billy Robinson was in it, right?
Mm-hmm. That was the main thing. He didn't. The Vern Gagne character didn't want to fight Billy Robinson. Billy Robinson was really good, and the Vern Gagne character was the champion. Controversy ensues, and finally they have their match at the end of the film, and it has kind of like a Sopranos-like ending. You don't really know how the match came out. Not a bad film, I'm telling you. Well, if you like that wrestling era,
I'll get my interest peaked again, and I'm going to go search for it tonight after we're done taping.
I'm sure somebody's streaming that film. It has to be. I consider it one of the 10 best wrestling movies ever made for sure.
Yeah, I love the poster. I actually had found a copy or bought a copy of that poster from somebody at a. I don't even know how I got it, but yeah, that was kind of a favorite of mine. Just the fact that there was a movie on wrestling back there in the early 70s.
I just want to emphasize that this is not to be confused with the other movie, The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. That's many years ago.
No, that's such a realistic film.
Oh, no kidding.
I mean, that brought me back to it gets you depressed because it's like, this is the way this freaking business is.
Well, yeah.
A guy like that who that didn't want to quit, didn't know how to quit, had all these issues and personal demons, and you have these little high school gyms with a bunch of the old timers sitting around waiting for someone to go to their table so they could sign an autograph.
Mm-hmm.
Very depressing if you spent a lot of time in the wrestling business on the inside of it.
Yep. Anybody who's ever covered indie shows, and I went to 1,000 of them, John, just like you did. They could be very happy places, and they could be very depressing places. Especially if they were what they call sold shows, which is where the promoter would literally pay for the show and then would try to recoup their money through ticket sales after the fact, or something. It worked that way, I think. And sometimes they didn't draw. I saw a sold show with Jerry Lawler, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Wahoo McDaniel. On and on the list went. There were maybe 25 people in the place. This was in Jersey.
The promoter didn't know how to promote.
Well, it was a sold show. It was,
and they didn't have the interest. So you're selling it to somebody, an organization, to raise money, and the promoter just sells it, gets the talent, and walks away from it without even attempting to help the organization sell the tickets.
Probably, but I know the guys got paid, so they didn't mind.
Well, that always happens with a sold show.
Yeah, you know who was on that card? That was Cactus Jack versus Damian Kane. Was the opener?
Well, some lineup there.
Some lineup. It's one of the biggest lineups I ever saw outside of a big major
25
event.
people.
25 people. First 4 rows of ringside sold. We were just hanging out. So I don't know what to tell you, but only in wrestling, my guys. Only in wrestling. All right. You went on and talked before you started to answer questions for the callers. We were talking about WCW and what was going on with the Clash of the Champions. And you said here, Eric Watts beat Bobby Eaton. And you weren't happy with that. You were just saying it was the Eric Watts show, and they were really pushing Eric at that point.
Yeah, but to go over Bobby, I mean, what a great wrestler. And to have Eric Watts beat Bobby Eaton back then, I mean, should have never happened.
And I know you're very friendly to this moment with the great Medusa. And on that show, she beat up Paulie Dangerously in like 5 minutes.
Yes. He was lucky it wasn't a shoot. It would have only been 2 minutes.
And I guess you predicted something to happen on the show when Barry Windham turned on Dustin Rhodes.
Yes, I am the genius.
He pointed his head, man.
You only could see that on the YouTube video.
Right, he just pointed his head. Yeah. We're both very cognizant of being on YouTube now. I'll have you know this. The first show we did, the first YouTube taping we did, I was getting over COVID, and I realized at the end of the thing when I'm watching it, I blew my nose about 17 times during the course of the show. So I'm trying to stay still. I'm trying not to be too animated here, just so it looks a little better for you YouTube listeners and viewers. You cognizant?
It now lives in history. It lives in history, Bob.
Yes, me blowing my nose.
The tissues. Yes, the first episode.
Yeah, this show is sponsored by Kleenex, ladies and gentlemen. So we go into the callers. They're asking about, Ultimate Warrior. They're asking about all that kind of stuff. And we have a clip here from a fella named Blaine from Great Neck. Do you recall this?
Yeah, Blaine became one of my favorites and when we went back to WNYG, because I didn't know what country he was from. I don't know, So that's why I was like, anytime there's a call from Blaine, let's listen to it, because he had a very unusual delivery.
But we have some really fun callers here. Let's listen to Blaine from Great Neck.
Hello, you're next.
Yes, I would like to know who's the next Intercontinental Champion.
Well, right now, I don't see Shawn Michaels losing it. He certainly won't lose it this coming Wednesday because the title's not up for grabs. But he's going to go into a feud with his former partner, Marty Jannetty. That's a possibility, and maybe even Bob Backlund.
Oh, okay.
All right?
Okay.
Thanks for your call.
That was it?
Blaine, yeah. I had to put that on there. You know what? I was uploading next week's show, and Marsh is going to make a note of this. The return, and for you longtime listeners, you're going to know Joey from North Babylon, and I'm going to have to find his first call so we could also play that one on the show. Joey from North Babylon was this guy that used to crack us up every week, because in the very first time he called, he got into a fight. I think it was the Power Twins or Paul Lee or something, and he called himself the Dean of Wrestling. And he would call in from the Dean. Then he'd have somebody else call. I mean, it's hilarious. And I'm so happy that he returned to the WNYG broadcast, which we'll hear him for the first time next week. Joey from North Babylon. So anyway, these are some of the callers that kind of, I'm kind of endeared with these days.
Mm-hmm.
The Blaines. I wish George from Lindenhurst would rear his head. We had so many of these types of shows, and the regular callers as well. But anyway, I just wanted to give that quick plug for next week. Joey from North Babylon returns.
Well, how about Vinny from West Babylon?
Yes, Vinny. Long story with Vinny, long history, and he's going to be calling in, and then I'll tell everybody about the history with Vinny from West Babylon after this segment.
All right, let's go to Vinny.
Building, and apparently he was never going to be there because I happened to catch one of the flyers for the show, and he was not listed on the flyer.
Well, that's one discrepancy I really have about it was great last night. The people were packed in there.
The people really enjoyed it. They really did.
But when you advertise a name like Paul Orndorff in the main event and Jimmy Snuka, and you advertise that Greg the Hammer Valentine was going to be there.
And they never mentioned, I didn't realize, they pulled it over on me on Valentine because I didn't realize that the show was over. And I said, you know what? Valentine wasn't here.
Yeah.
And they never mentioned Valentine not being there. But all in all, I think they pulled off a good show. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. That autograph session they had was too long for the people who came to see wrestling, such as myself. But for the kids, they extended it. There must have been 40 minutes of autographs, and the guys standing out there taking pictures. And I think it was good for the wrestlers also, because there's guys there like Chris Michaels and some of those other guys who nobody even knows. They were out there like they were stars, getting their picture taken, giving autographs, and it's good for them too. So I didn't mind waiting because it was fun for the kids, and I'm sure fun for the wrestlers too to be big shots for once.
Yes, it's a good situation. I hope there are more shows like this. The only thing that I think is just a detriment to the whole thing is just the advertising names that are not there.
Yeah.
That's traditionally, the late Mark Tenley used to do that all the time. And that's what burnt out, and that's what killed a lot of the high schools that were running professional wrestling. When you have a card, when you advertise the names, you got to make sure those names are there.
That's right, especially big names like Valentine and Paul Orndorff, that's for sure.
Because those are the guys that sell the tickets.
That's right. That's right. They may have pulled it over last night. Like I said, I think everybody really enjoyed themselves, but they're not going to get away with it all the time, that's for sure.
No, they can't do it.
No. But I really enjoyed the card last night. I really did. I thought there was a lot of funny spots. There were a lot of missed moves, but these are guys who are not the true WWF, WCW guys, and they're trying their best, and and sometimes it is a little funny, but I still enjoyed myself. I thought it was a pretty good show. I've seen a lot worse shows. I think I've seen worse shows on PPV on WCW than I saw last night, really.
Well, it was good seeing you again last night, Vinny.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, John. It really is. And
hey, what happened to Ski? Wasn't he supposed to be there last night?
I was on vacation, and I've been back about 6 days now, and I have not heard from him. So,
because I saw him at the Hawk appearance last week, and he said he was going to show up early at Babylon High School, but he never.
Sometimes Ski goes into these stages where you don't hear from him anymore, and I guarantee as soon as I hang up this phone with you, my phone will probably be ringing because he's probably listening to me right now.
All righty, listen, take care, buddy.
John, my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
You mentioned Mark Tendler.
Yes, he mentioned a number of names in there. Yeah,
that rings the bell. And Cactus and I recalling the magnificent LaRocca.
Yeah,
right. He would advertise names that sounded sort of kind of like. Mick Foley's an expert on this because he worked for him. I think at that point, the magnificent LaRocca. And he advertised Samoans, and one of them was Mick. I mean,
right.
I mean, it's like he would do anything as a promoter. It was just, and you're right. It wasn't fair to the fans who. I remember even the show I was on. I refereed a couple matches for him. He had a Bobby Piper. I mean, I rest my case.
Yeah, that was Chris Michaels.
No, not this guy.
This was a different one?
There was a different one, yeah.
Rowdy Bobby, because I remember Chris Michaels using that name, Rowdy Bobby Piper.
Yes, but maybe he used the same name twice with two different guys.
He could have, and
I wouldn't put it past him.
No. But I wanted to get back to Vinny from West Babylon, who I don't know if you know his history or not, Bob, with the show, but he was one of the first callers to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight and became a dear friend. And he actually was a producer for the show. He helped me out during the WGBB days, so I'm sure you ran into him. And I keep in touch with him to this day. It was at a promotion that I did with I think it was John Tolis and Woman at a place in Jericho. That Vinny met a girl named Andrea there at this luncheon that I did, and they met, fell in love, got married.
Wow! And
they're in Italy right now on a vacation because we correspond a lot, and I see him every time I go to New York. We get together. Big country music fan. He was down here with Andrea this summer, and was able to take them to lunch but he had a dear friend, and I was able to get together and have a little reunion over Christmas time last year with him and TJ from Deer Park, who was another early caller and a fan and a friend to this day, and Richard Nieves, who you probably
that's
know
right.
as
That's
the
one I couldn't get to. Yeah, that's right.
That was one you couldn't get to. Yeah. So Vinny is a dear friend of the show and was certainly one of those early smart callers to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight when we started in '89. And just a guy that's just a fabulous friend to this day, and really helped out a great deal back then.
You know, that's I talk about. I don't want to sound like a cornball, but you know, the people you meet throughout your careers and throughout your professional life, and the ones you keep track of, it's really a blessing. You know, because it's like, though you think back to the times you spent in your formative years, no matter what your position is in the world, and they make life easier for you. It's always a pleasure to see them or hear from them. You know, it's really great. You keep track of.
Yeah,
it's the same way with me. The people I worked with in my publishing years, I have so many friends I still have to this day, and I cherish it because it's like, you know, life's short, and these are the people that helped you out on the way up or down or wherever you end up. They just, you know, they were your buddies, the people you hung out with when you weren't working.
Yeah. It's just a joy to keep in touch with people that you knew so many years ago. And even though you don't see them or talk to them all the time, just to have that connection still is pretty cool.
Nothing like it, man. Nothing like it. I have a friend named John Pine who was considers probably be my best friend in the world. He lives in Florida now, but he was in the first newspaper I ever worked for, which was my hometown newspaper. And we've remained friends really tight all these years. It's got to be like 35 years now. So it's like, you know, you hang on to it, you know, best you can. Years come and go, but, you know, if you keep your friends, you got a lot going for you. So that's the way I look at it anyway. All right, I'll stop being a wuss now. And hey, listen, here's another friend, Steve from West Hempstead.
Yeah, Steve was one of those original callers to Pro Wrestling Spotlight back in '89, one of the smart callers. And a lot of these guys are coming back because they knew that they can get into WNYG because we didn't have a big audience anymore. So being able to hear his voice again and answer his questions was certainly a pleasure. I always enjoyed his phone calls.
He was great. He had a great voice, too.
Yes.
Let's take a listen to it.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're next.
Hi, John. Steve from West Hempstead.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
John, I really enjoyed myself last Sunday at Sportsplex just to see the kids' reactions to Hawk when he was so accommodating, is the word, lifting the kids up and putting them on his lap, and he just, he spent a lot of time with everybody, and you could see that everybody there really enjoyed themselves. And I think that kind of, if you can do that, once every 6 weeks or 8 weeks with a wrestler, something of that nature, the people really enjoy it because they get that up-close personal contact with the wrestler, Yeah,
well, Hawk was great. He was press slamming some of the kids.
Yeah.
And, we have another one. I talked to Davey Boy Smith yesterday. We'll be announcing that here on the program next week as far as when that will be. But, yeah, I agree with you. If we something like that, if we could do something every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I love it. I love seeing other fans meet the wrestlers, and everyone seems to have a good time at these events.
Well, see, I'm a little bit disappointed, and you might disagree with me, but I'm a little bit disappointed with Captain Lou Albano. When you asked him about possibly coming back to the WWF, and he mentioned about it would play well with his cartoon character that he's doing now. When you think back to maybe a couple of years ago when he was doing UWF, and he was talking about we want wrestling the way it used to be, and he was so strong a proponent of that. Plus, he talked that way at your convention with Bruno.
Yeah.
And now to hear him even entertain the thought of going back again to WWF, that he had a good relationship with McMahon Sr., it's sort of like, I think he loses a little bit of credibility in my eyes, at least. But I can understand, maybe he wants a payday, this kind of thing. But
I don't think Lou was hurting financially at all. It's just a matter of, hey, it's a national company, and one thing you learn about the wrestling business, and I've known it since I've been in it for close to 20 years on and off, that people don't really burn bridges.
Yeah, I think you're right on that point.
Well, we got to run because the show's
John.
coming to a close. Thanks for your call, Steve.
Steve from West Hempstead, a real regular guy who called a lot, John.
Yes, he was almost an every week caller. Always good to hear his voice. So, we had a lot of calls, and if you want to hear all of them, just go to patreon.com/John Arezzi, and you'll hear the whole unedited show because there was a whole bevy of calls on this program. There was a lot that we didn't even talk about, but you can go to patreon.com/John Arezzi. You can hear the whole unedited show with all the phone callers in their entirety on the Patreon page.
There's nothing like that Patreon page, and I'm not saying because I'm a member. I'm not saying because I'm part of the show. I'm saying because there's a ton of content there, John. Tell them about all the clips and all that other stuff, too.
Well, it's just like we were talking about Davey Boy Smith, for example. Like, he'll be on the show next. Well, he's not because he tried to reach him, and his phone is busy for the whole hour, but he eventually comes on 2 weeks from now, and then it's a 2-part interview. But I uploaded that entire uncut interview from the phone conversation I had because it was a pre-taped interview. That's up for patrons now. I put that up this past Sunday. So it's a half-hour interview with him, and it's like when he just left the WWF and talking about the reasons and the behind-the-scenes stuff that he had to endure leading up to that big match with Bret at SummerSlam, and some of the things they wanted him to do and some of the things they prohibited him to do in the UK where he's from. So he was really upset with them. And if you want to hear that whole interview, it's at patreon.com/John Arezzi. But we'll be playing that interview on our coverage of what happens 30 years ago. In a couple of weeks, we start that off and we make a couple other announcements about him. But other than that, there are 8mm films. There are photo sets from the Garden in the 70s. I have photo sets up there of Bruno Sammartino and Billy Graham and the bloodiest matches I saw at the Garden, and all of these other highlights and videos of Southeast Asia when I was on tour there, and behind-the-scenes stuff and sex scandal stuff. I mean, it's just like on and on and on. I mean, you literally you would have to take months to listen to everything or watch everything that's on there right now. So it's a great value for everybody who loves history. Patreon.com/John Arezzi.
I think it's an important thing to note, too, when it comes to your interviews, which I still think, as much as I like the entire content of your show, I think the interviews are the most important things you did, because you got people to speak off the cuff and truthfully in an era where nobody did it.
Yeah.
I mean, the type of interviews you conducted, somehow you made these guys feel at home and at ease, and they would just kind of spill the beans. They would just tell the truth about their lives and their contract situations. The Davey Boy Smith interview is a perfect example of that. And people were doing it back then. It wasn't like now where everybody, when you don't see them on television on a wrestling show, they'll say anything. You know, they have Twitter accounts. They'll say anything.
There are shoot interviews that are released all day long, every day.
Yeah, but back when you were doing it, there was no such thing as a shoot interview back then.
No, there wasn't. There were people that would call and talk to Dave Meltzer, and he wouldn't disclose where he'd get his information from.
Mm-hmm.
And Wade Keller used to do these great pro wrestling torches in the early 90s, and that was kind of the shoot style as well. John Clark from the Wrestling Flyers started doing those as well. So it was a handful of us. I was the only kind of broadcast guy doing it.
Audio, right, exactly.
Yeah, so I was kind of an innovator when it came to that, and it was just kind of a knack I had because I wanted to find out what was going on. I mean, the show never started out as a shoot show. It started out as a kayfabe show, staying in storyline character, and I called myself John Anthony, not even John Arezzi, because I had those two idiotic matches. So I was ex-wrestler John Anthony. But I got, Ricky Steamboat opened the door. When Ricky Steamboat left the NWA, he opened the door, and when I got him on the show, and he talked about why he left and the contract dispute, and then Jim heard the interview, got a copy of it, and then he came on the show a week or two later, and that we were off to the races with people opening up. So it's an interesting time in the business. Now it's like everyone is, it's like there's no secrets anymore. Everyone talks, and there's public feuds between wrestlers on Twitter now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Stuff. What's going on recently with
wrestlers,
Sammy Guevara and what's his name, Charlotte Flair's husband, Andrade.
Andrade, yes.
So they actually had a fight last week at AEW. They had a fist fight in the back. I mean, another fist fight in the back of AEW. I mean, what the hell is going on over there?
I can't even fathom what that scene is like. It just doesn't feel right. They have
you got a bunch of guys suspended still. It's a Kenny Omega. We're the Young Bucks. I mean, it's just what's going on over there.
I can't figure it out. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Maybe I don't know. I think
there's one big chief. There's not enough Indians.
Oh, yeah.
There's one chief, which is Tony Khan, and he's doing everything himself. He doesn't really have an infrastructure and talent relation people that are in high levels that he could buffer some of this stuff. So
this is why you need I hate to sound like a fogey, but if Jim Cornette was around, if Dutch Mantell was around, if Kevin Sullivan was around, if Danny Davis was around, there's so many people in wrestling history that not only could promote wrestling and teach wrestling, but also keep everything on an even keel and everybody knew the roles instead of wrestlers writing their own success stories now, which is, I think, the problem with AEW. I think they all want to do what they want to do and they don't want to not do it or they're going to hit somebody. That's not how wrestling
is. There's all these little feuds and backstabbing, and there's a lot of stuff going on, which is really ugly because the company started off with just high hopes and great ratings and a lot of great wrestlers and performers, and now it's just kind of fodder for the internet and Twitter and just people like drumming up trouble and. But there's a lot of chaos backstage there. And, the WWE is more stable because there is a pecking order there. Yes. Even though Vince is gone, there's still Triple H and Stephanie is there. And they have a pecking order of who is in charge and who you go to and producers of matches, etc. But I don't know what that infrastructure is at AEW other than Tony Khan running the show with some help from some people.
It doesn't feel like there's even an infrastructure. But let me ask you a question. What do you think of the WWE products since Triple H has kind of taken the reins? Has it improved?
Subtle changes, little improvement, but I'm not, I'm not over the top because I'm just not into it anymore. I just really, I fast forward through these shows and just watch a little bit. If Roman Reigns is on, I'll watch that. If Paul Heyman is on, I'll watch that. If Ronda Rousey's on, I'll watch that. Alexa Bliss, I like. I only pick and choose certain parts of. I haven't even seen Raw yet from this past week with the D-Generation X reunion. I'm going to watch that, but there's not a lot up there that I'm like. I have no interest in it.
Well, I really, really like the women's division from Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, everybody. I think 9/10 of their roster is tremendous. I think the women's feuds make more sense because there's a reason for them to be at loggerheads, whereas the male feuds are kind of somebody attacks somebody out of nowhere. And you know what's wrong with WWE? Too many matches where it's outside interference over and over and over and over, 5-6 times in a 3-hour show. It's just there's always people around the ring allowed to do whatever they want without any repercussions, and it gets old after a while.
Yeah, the biggest problem with both of these organizations is there's no compelling storylines.
Right.
There's no build up. There's no there is no start, middle to a finish of a storyline. It used to be soap opera for men. I mean, it really was.
Right.
And now it's not. Now it's just kind of like, booking that is not. There doesn't seem a lot of pre-planning into the booking, and not a lot of thought out stuff. There's a lot of performers, obviously, but so for me, it doesn't keep my attention because it moves fast and there's nothing to grip onto. I gripped onto the you were talking about the women. I gripped onto the Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair feud that took place and headlined WrestleMania a few years back. I thought that was freaking awesome. That drew me in big time.
Right.
Roman Reigns draws me in, but who's going to beat him? They're going to, hold out for The Rock coming back at WrestleMania next year in Hollywood. Who knows? But there's really nothing there that, that's compelling me to kind of say, I got to watch Raw, or I got to watch SmackDown, or I got to watch AEW on Wednesday and Friday. I don't got to do anything because it's not driving me to turn on that remote control color TV and put on those.
Well, back to your point, back to the point I was making with Roman Reigns. There's a champion who's had the belt for XXX number of days. They're touting how long he's had the belt. 700
plus days. Yeah.
And how many times has the Usos interfered for him before he scores a pinfall without repercussions, without punishment? You know what I'm saying? It's like it happens over and over in every match. Somebody shows up at ringside, gets involved or distracts somebody, and it goes on over and over. It's been done.
It's the bloodline, man.
And do I have to watch people get put through that table every week? I mean, it was special when they first did it. Now we've been there. We've done that. We need just to freshen it up in some way that I don't think anybody's been able to freshen up.
Well, that's why I'm happy Bray Wyatt is back, because as we talked about in the beginning of the show, I liked the character. I didn't like it when they burned him to a crisp and immediately started shooting fire out of his asshole. I mean, that stuff. But the Funhouse segment, what he did with Alexa Bliss, the character, how evil it was. We'll see where they take it. I know you're not a fan. For some reason, I thought it was entertaining for me.
I was hoping they were going to do when he came back, because I had a feeling he was going to come back. I was hoping he would come out and show all these characters, go, "Hi, my name is Wyndham Rotundo."
Yeah.
And go work.
Wouldn't that be something? I would actually endorse that, Bob, if he did.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think it would go over. And he would talk about what he had to do to get himself over, blah, blah. You know how people love that kind of stuff?
Because that's kind of old school in a way. It's kind of old, because he's kind of an old school looking guy.
Yeah.
He looks like a throwback from like the 60s and 70s. And
look, he has a very unique charisma. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, he's fantastic at what he does. He's great. In terms of, he's better with the mask off, though.
Mm-hmm.
He gives great facials. Why would you hide that face? And even if it's a scary mask, why would you do that?
No, I'm not a fan of the Fiend.
No, I'm
Fiend. A fan of him without the mask. Even the Funhouse, when he's in there with those, crazy, evil, almost like Pee Wee Herman as characters in the Funhouse with him.
Well, I put it to you that what hurt Bray Wyatt was the pandemic, because I think Vince McMahon running the show got desperate. He couldn't do arena shows. He only had the taped, no audience shows. Remember, they put the TV screens out in the audience.
Yeah,
people were looking
they
in.
were popping Rey Mysterio's eyes out of his head, and they were burning up Bob Orton's face, and they were burning up Bray, and they did all
Alexa
these
Bliss
crazy
would come in the ring.
shooting gimmicks.
Alexa Bliss would come in the ring in one outfit and magically transform into another outfit, and all this other stuff. They were so desperate. And they were doing the tape film matches, the terrible match between Wyatt and Wyatt. Cinematic matches, exactly right. With Braun Strowman and Wyatt, which almost made me vomit. I thought that was
AJ and Undertaker.
I didn't like that either. I'm sorry. I don't need musical backgrounds in my wrestling matches.
No. I don't want to watch a movie in the middle of a pay-per-view or a WrestleMania. That's not, that's not something you get into.
And he essentially kills AJ Styles in the ring, and then 2 weeks later, AJ's back like nothing ever happened. Come on, folks. Don't blur that line that much, please. Yeah. You're going to ruin things for
Sounds like we're up Schitt's Creek without a paddle, Bob.
Not me. I'll fight for my good wrestling as long as I got strength in this good arm.
As long as you got YouTube.
As long as I got YouTube. give me Dynamic
Dave
Dynasty.
Go back as far as you want.
Yeah.
You know, what I dig on YouTube, I dig watching the old from Washington, D.C.
Yes, you've seen them.
Mid-'60s. WWF with Ray Morgan and friendly Bob Freed as the ring announcer.
Do you notice who they're hyping on those shows? I've seen the YouTube ones. Have you noticed who the big challenger is for Bruno at that point? It was Baron Michael Cicluna.
Baron.
You don't see him on those shows, but they're talking about at the Washington and in Madison Square Garden. He's going to be the opponent.
And it was the introduction of Bruno Sammartino's cousin, Antonio Pugliese.
Not the way Bob Freed pronounced it.
Well, Bob Freed couldn't pronounce Joe Smith's name right.
Right, that's what I always say. You can pronounce
your cousin name. Joe.
My cousin Joe. Yes. You don't remember our tag team, do you? The Smiths.
Oh well. I did not know that.
No, yeah, we lost. Anyway, what a show, John. It's
good one. It was a good one. Let's bring Mr. Marsh on to say see what his comments are. We didn't have to call upon you this week, Marsh, for any bloopers, questions, or anything like that. So I guess we did okay today.
Yeah, nothing specific, but I did just email you both a link to the wrestler from 1974 starring Ed.
There we go.
Just like that. Bang.
There you go.
Where is it? Where's it from?
Okay, so it looks like Amazon Prime may have it available in some locations. It said it was not available in mine, so I sent you to another website that is very reputable, but I don't know if they're supposed to be streaming this, so I don't want to shout them out.
All right.
It's a safe site for sure, but I just don't know if they're allowed to stream all the stuff that they do. I just don't know.
Well, I will look forward to that. I will enjoy watching that tonight.
I'm telling you, you will. There is so many. I think there's so many AW and NWA guys in that thing that aren't, just a great period piece, great feel for the era. And of course, Vern Gagne is the star.
Yeah, I'm excited to see.
Along with Ed Asner, who was, Ed Asner from Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah, Lou Grant, man.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well,
I think it was really cool. It was a really fun show. It was neat hearing some of this stuff. Especially the Lou Albano, realizing, because I was wondering that too. I was like, why did he end up at a birthday party when I was listening to it? It was really cool to hear you break down how that happened.
Yeah. And then the Micky B stuff. And I just wish I had that damn tape.
I was going to ask if you did, because I thought of that too.
You did find a nice photograph of the three of us together, me, Captain Lou, and Micky B. So I'm sure, folks watching the video cast will be able to see that.
Yes, I found a better version after I sent you that one too, full size, so you can see your thumbs ups and everything. So.
Very cool. Yeah, that was a fun day. All right, guys. I mean, that's going to about wrap up this edition. Why don't you let everybody know? Now, Bob, you got a really big announcement tonight to talk about your social media handles. So why don't you break the news to everybody out there on where they could find you on Twitter?
This is a big announcement.
It's huge.
Oh my God! Yes, it's
huge. I changed my Twitter handle for two reasons. Number one, my old one confused everybody, and it meant nothing. So my Twitter handle is now, drum roll please, it's just plain Bob Smith PWS, and the PWS stands for Pro Wrestling Spotlight. That's it. Just look up Bob Smith PWS. That's it.
Yeah,
it'll be easier to find.
No reason to spell Bahumba anymore.
No, nobody knows what it means anyway. It sounds kind of like Mamba Warrior. It doesn't make any sense. So in any event, I always welcome comments, good, bad, or indifferent, including people who will direct message me and run me up a flagpole for not knowing who Kamala 2 was, or who I refer to him, Diet Kamala.
Yeah, Diet. We got Bob Smith 2 now.
And Ref Marsh.
That was good. I like that one.
Bob Smith 2. And Mr. Marsh, Ref Marsh. I'm not going to mention your first name because, you never appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you do have a first name. It's just not, you're just not Marsh. It's Marsh.
There's a lot of systems out there that think my name is Marsh, and I appreciate those systems the most. Yeah. I work for
Where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Ref Marsh. You can find all the stuff I do with my hangouts at wrestlingontherocks.com. Because we were talking about that too, and we're going to talk about it more. What you guys were saying, not a lot of compelling stories nowadays. We feel like we're getting attached to characters and performers, but whatever they're doing is almost superfluous, which is way different from back then.
Great
where it was
point. Great point.
Yeah. Like Sami Zayn, can't miss. I feel like I have to watch SmackDown to catch Sami Zayn.
I like
kind of care who he's in the ring with. It doesn't matter.
I just like the character.
Yeah, he's just amazing.
But here's the problem. He's going to get his ass kicked. That's the problem.
He's going to look good doing it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, he's going to get his ass kicked. And this will not end well with Jey Uso. It's so obvious, right?
Well, yeah, that tensions are high for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
You'll have to watch SmackDown to find out more. Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
Absolutely.
Hey, that was good, John. You should be in broadcasting, I think.
Yes. Speaking of broadcasting, I do have a plug for the Gibby Show podcast, which is now in its fourth week. We just finished the tragic ending of the Blue Jays season, as well as the Mets' tragic ending. Special guest this week, if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, is Danny Jansen, who's a catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. And we've had Josh Donaldson and Jose Bautista, Alek Manoah. And next week, I can't mention it publicly yet, but there'll be somebody that actually played for the Blue Jays and the Mets, a very polarizing figure. That's the Gibby Show, wherever you get your podcast, or go on YouTube. You can see it there, too. It's at the Gibby Show on YouTube. And, of course, everywhere you get those podcasts. And like this podcast, I want you guys to give it a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple. That always helps us out. Gentlemen, good show. Thank you so much. This is going to wrap it up for this week. You could find me at Twitter at John Arezzi, Instagram at John Arezzi as well. We've already mentioned the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Just go there and subscribe to our channel, please. Let's get up to the point where we can start making a little money with it. I'm never afraid to ask for, money. We deserve to monetize our stuff.
Share the link with your friends.
Share the links.
And you know what? If you're old-fashioned, give them a buzz, send them a text message, let them know what we're up to. Because you know what?
Yeah, share the love. Share the love.
There is no other wrestling podcast like this one. Nobody has the content that we have. It's all original. It's only here, and I think you need to hear it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to announce a sale for my book, Matt Memories. I just got a shipment in from ECW Press. Now that the book's been out for a little bit more than a year, I can offer a discount on the book. So if you'd like an autographed copy of Matt Memories, the book that talks about my career in pro wrestling, country music, and with the Mets, send me an email, john@mattmemories.com, and which includes shipping, $25, signed, numbered, and shipped for $25 flat. So if you haven't gotten a copy of that book already, send me an email, and we'll facilitate a link for you to Venmo me or give me a PayPal. And in your hot little hands, you'll be able to hear my story as only I can tell it and only did. A horrible roller coaster life of tragedy, some success, and mostly pure anger and resentment towards mankind.
that sounds like fun.
Wait till the documentary.
Yeah.
It's getting towards Halloween. I'm going to start to get more evil as the weeks progress here over the next few weeks. I may dress up. We may have a Halloween contest. Maybe we'll dress up in. What do you think about that for a Halloween show? What do you think we should? You want to dress up? I put my freaking Mil Mascaris mask on, and that'll be the end of it for me.
I'll put a pencil in my ear. Go as a journalist. I don't know what to do. What am I going to do?
If you put a pencil in, you could go as one of the victims of the Sheik.
Oh yeah, okay, in the forehead, yeah.
Or if it was through your head, you go Steve Martin.
Yes,
exactly.
You can do that as well.
Very good.
All right, gentlemen. Anything else before I say our goodbyes for this week?
Anything else? Thank you all out there.
Yes,
the response is always very gratifying, and we're going to have another soiree with our Patreon fans soon.
Yes, we are. I'm going to have to just figure out whatever that day is. Why don't we figure it out week from Monday or something like that? We'll confirm it this week before that. Yeah.
There's another thing. We have these monthly talks with our Patreon members, and you can get involved in that simply by joining Patreon.
That's right. We have fun with that, and everybody looks forward to it. So we're going to have to schedule. I've been, I have to say it's my fault. I've been in Mets land. I've been depressed over the Mets collapse. I have been just so much going on in my life right now, which I don't need to get into everything, but it's been a tumultuous couple of weeks. Let's put it that way.
John, please don't be depressed. Uncle Steve is going to work it out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Uncle Steve is going to definitely work out the Mets problems anyway. Mm-hmm. And next week is going to kind of be an interesting one, too, because it'll be our 1-year anniversary of being together with Mr. Bob Smith.
Mm-hmm. It's right around my birthday, too.
Yeah.
My birthday is October 26th, so.
No kidding.
So it's going to be
maybe we'll do a Zoom in and around your birthday, so it could also turn into not just a Patreon Zoom, but also a celebration of Bob's birthday on October 26th. And he's only going to be, 27?
28.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm as decrepit as it gets, my friend. Don't you forget it. But no, and next week's show, we're going to do, what is it exactly? We're going to do something different, or?
We'll play some clips. We'll surprise you. Let's not give it away. We got some surprises for next week. We got all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah. Now, this will be our 1-year anniversary together in the Revive show, right?
Yes.
Wow.
1 full year.
They said it wouldn't last.
They said it wouldn't last, and here we are. And now we brought Marsh aboard, and he's done great, and we're happy. And I still love Jay. I mean, Jay was on Jay Farrar was on Twitter yesterday, and we kind of exchanged pleasantries with each other. So good dude there. We love everyone. What can I tell you?
We do. Jay's the best. Jay's awesome.
Yes, very good dude. And that's it, guys. I'm tired. I want to go have some dinner now. Dinner time. When we're wrapping this up. John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast is a production of Matt Memories, LLC. Our co-host is Bob Smith. Our producer and creative director is our friend Marsh. And thanks to Patreon executive producers Anthony Pyrus and Joe Holloway, and for all the patrons for your support, helping with the production cost of this show. Until next week, when we relive more history with you, this is John Arezzi for Pro Wrestling Spotlight. See you next week.